Yo, welcome to a podcast. Hello. I was going to do an unaffiliated. First, I was going to do a podcast, then maybe this one feels more like an unaffiliated. It's way different. But then, well, sometimes it is. But then, nope, you know what? I do have a cheap sheet, but like, not really. It's just a bunch of topics. Everything from like Oscars slap question mark to the word politics to Florida dash Disney Ron's map woke books. Let's see, we've got that Vice story. I said I'd touch on that. Probably more of an overall observation about like how you say like international relations closer to like with countries closer to our like our friends to the south and all that. So I don't know. Like we've got to get a handle on a lot of things. I saw something from Ice Cube that he had posted to Facebook, right? Sort of like this, just off the cuff, like he's not pretending he's got all the answers, but what he thinks. Liked it, so like it kind of sparked something when I thought about it because like I don't know. So not necessarily that'll help, but like not for nothing, like give my 2 cents because I think he's exactly right. What would you say to your own? Like it's wait a minute. I don't think anyone on any of the sides have really give a damn about it either. As an outside observer, even with respect to like what you were talking about. So uh, at any rate, let's dive into it, right? So, like, who knows what we can do? And then, yeah, I think I'll also maybe touch on Mr. Depp's and Miss Heard's trial there that's going on. But I'll do that towards the end. And who knows? There's so much stuff, man. It's crazy. Then there's the war about it. And you can see, like, there is, like, I know, and then there's Elon, right? And Elon's trying to, and there's the Twitter stuff, Twitter, right? So, it's a lot of crap. Uh, Jeez, it's just like I mean I think the overall like I just keep coming back to like there's no truth, there's no honesty, there's no integrity, there's no like willingness to like show like actually like tear down that wall and show yourselves to each other and try to like do good. And there's never any minutia. It's always very rigid and binary with what you should espouse and who you've got to like, and then it like yeah, I just don't like it. And even to DeSantis, maybe I'll start with the Florida crap. Who cares, right? Florida, the wonderful state I find myself in, and yeah, it's a nice sunny thing. I like it, but yet like there's it's very Mr. DeSantis did something that strikes me as very divisive with that gerrymandering of a map. You cannot have your reaction to like gerrymandering of the past be like not only are you going to try to undo that, but then you're going to gerrymander yourself the other way, like on top of it, which is overtly what he did. And so, like, you're not. Wait a minute. You wait a damn minute, because, like, first of all, like, that's a hyper partisan move that's sure to only have short-term gain for like you and like Republicans to celebrate, while like the rest of us would scratch our heads at that. But then again, like even a lot of the Republicans in like your own like chambers seem to like say the same about it. So but I mean, think about it. Then for like months at a time, then they'll got to go to lawsuits and stuff. But wait a minute. But yeah, well, right. In the meantime, like you still like you have the old, it's not like the elections in 2022, like now we'll have new like fair maps because it's going to be in litigation over like yours, which are unfair. So they'll use the ones they have now, which are, they strike me from the research I did is like unfair. But like instead of trying to course correct a bit, wait a minute, I mean, that's a joke. You don't have to do that. If your idea, I mean, you're up against like the woke mob, you'll get no fighting from me, let alone like a lot of people who might lean left or liberal or whatever we like to think of ourselves, when I'm happily unaffiliated. but I do gravitate towards like social justice and all kinds of stuff within reason. What I see happening is this big business about it that like it does not enrich, the woke get richer, right? That's kind of the plan. Wow, like, and like, God, it's very important to plant the seeds when they're in like pre-K, that they're, like, anything at all about like, boys and girls, and it's not we gotta like way. And when you're like a 30 something person, and that's a 4 or 5 year old, and we don't want to do that because, wait a minute, some of us do try our best to like say, there's something out, and it's like it's even sometimes whatever it is, it's less important that what they're espousing so much as like you listen to them, and if you don't, you're bad. And like that's not, I mean, these people are trying to like suggest who write the new textbooks, the wokesters, that 35 to 44-year-olds, my age demographic, is less racist on like significantly, but percentage wise, than 18 and under. When like, I mean, if you have half a brain, right, and you're a human being, that's convenient. That math, I wonder what you're trying to, I mean, that is like, it's amazing, because you would think these DeSantis types don't have any reason to be up in arms about like school books. How could they ban them? Like, thank you for providing documentation of at least one like ludicrous problem. Because, I mean, wait a minute. That's way worse than what DeSantis did with gerrymandering, which is bad enough because it's fucking gerrymandering and you shouldn't do it. It's cheating. You went too far to course correct from like what you perceive as like, and probably overtly correctly, is like gerrymandering in the movement. So, but wait a minute. I mean, it just undercuts, like, there's only one reason, is even with like your court, like Supreme Court appointees, it's very unlikely that it'll pass mustard. And of course, it invites the lawsuit when you could have just like, and then like, good enough, and then fair enough, good enough for the Republican edge, right? And then like let them try to sue you, it won't work. But like this, you even know, wait a minute, you gave them point. And like, there's a lot of other things like, and I'm not quite, I don't know. But and then Disney's nuts too. I mean, like I do think you walked into that one, you placated like the 35 to 44-year-olds, let's say, and even like something younger, like and in so doing, because they did the same thing they do with everything, which is feign outrage, and I saw it coming with that one. The second I saw the first CNN like perception from the experts about what that bill was, and then read it, and then saw like subsequent misinformation about it, when it's a parents' rights things, and it might as well be the don't say straight like law, because it's not, and like I said, I remember on another podcast, for instance, I said, hey, you don't really have a right to, let me explain what I meant. You have a right to be offended at whatever you want. A Christian, if they're in the room with you, most of them anyway, if you say Jesus Christ or God damn it or one of those things, they're going to get offended. Even if they're not, like, even the fake ones especially will, but like, I'm saying, in theory, like, I could actually offend somebody, and they say, hey, you can't say that, that's like, about it. But what they can't do is actually, like, forbid you from saying it, or come after. There have to be consequences to saying that. You said Jesus Christ in vain. We got to come after you. We're going to cancel everything. You would be up in, or you would sue in 10 seconds. Actually, you would notice that. However, when it comes to like, you used a binary term like ladies and gentlemen, or mom or dad, or boys and girls, right? Can't you, like, don't that's bad? Hey kid, that's bad, but see, remember the ones that like don't know not to say like, like sister or brother, like, they don't know to say sibling, or, those ones are bad. Or when, again, slow down, right? Now, again, good on you for fighting like all things woke, because it is a sham and they don't have best interest. And I'll move right from like on that note to like I said, it just did strike me as like an interesting take, like when I saw like Ice Cube kind of railing against like everybody like not really wanting to help, particularly like the autos community, right? Because like I guarantee you, you're probably right about that, particularly with the people who want to help out best, because it strikes me as like the whole thing, it just like when you, especially when you look at education, and especially when you look at like sometimes inner cities did get big funding and do get all kinds of money apportioned to it. Like in other words, they if you look into it and you see how much money has been dumped into like inner cities or to fight injustice, and then you take a look at the condition of the inner cities, or you take a look at like just how well off everybody must be now around there, right? When, you know, it seems to me like when the Democrats use I'll put it this way, the Democrats use the filibuster 400 times more than ever before in 2020, and then turn around in 2021 and say that the filibuster is a bygone thing of the Jim Crow, and you've got to get rid of it right now or you're a racist. I mean, they really like must think like black people stupid. Sometimes I do think that, because they think all of us citizens are stupid. So if they're talking to that, like, man, wait a minute, that's not so. And like, you know, but they try to like shame and like, you know, when you wouldn't, you know, remember when we said you got to put all the money in for this and that so we can get like whatever, whoever, the first like black astronaut on the moon. Yes, like you don't want to not fund that, right? Would you be, you know, it's like slow down. All right, I'm not against that. That I didn't. To quote Tucker Carlson, who's another like word I've got on here, because he didn't really so much as step into it as like people like, I don't like the weasel either sometimes. That ain't it. I give him a hard enough time on my unaffiliated, but yet like he's not. Wait a minute, that person. See, there's a bygone era to the like TV. There didn't used to be many channels, so like though everybody, you know, you had to watch few. You know, the journalist on TV is a unique category, and they know it. Whereby like da 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 da, like Bastion, they all have bully pulpit because it's not. So wait a minute, hell no. Even if I disagreed with like 90% of what he says, which I don't, it's not quite that, with in my opinion. You know, it's ridiculous. You read these articles like, I don't know, they're always interjecting this or that about it, and it's like, what? But anyway, let me get back to this point I was making. I apologize. You, in my opinion, if you were a member of the African American community and you notice that things do not get better, it's sad. It's like you almost have like, where do you turn when like it doesn't seem to like it never seems to benefit like the black people, like whether it's wealth, equality, like justice under law, a lot of things like sure like still seem against like particularly like I do understand it's just they really like I don't think you're gonna get much in the way of like actual solutions. They want to. There's this like new clique in town that's not all that sneaky, but they're like so sneaky, and they're trying to like they're trying to divide like within the clans and within the household, right? So the first thing you would have to do is try to, I would imagine, stick together, especially when you're in those communities, right? It's not like you don't know, but no, really elect upright, they're annoyingly honest African Americans, black people of your choice, in those communities. And then the first thing you should do is make sure, because everybody kind of hates the transparency of where does the money go when we get the funding, but it's just that. In other words, not only insist on like funding, but we don't need schemes that enrich the few with majority of the money. If there's been an appropriate, in other words, it's almost like what is always needed is like the town budget front and center where all can log in and see it, whether they're happy about it or not. Here's where the money is going for this project. Here's an update on that project. They don't do that because like it's all stacked against. It's like they would rather people put their trust in a politician or like a cause and like follow that or vote that way, and then it'll all be this, and like they know damn well that's not so. So, rather than any of that, right? And it does seem designed too, like especially with like, because I have had black friends over the course of my life. I've had many conversations. I fully understand. I didn't grow up like that, and I don't understand what it's like to come from there, because like I believe them. You know what I mean? No, I do know that, and it seems like there's not many legal avenues for them to get out when you grow up in impoverished communities. There's not. Everybody even knows the same and doesn't do anything, but that's because I put it to you this way: the the Democrats care so much for the like black people thing has been like said for political gain exclusively for seemingly a while, particularly in local elections. Like, I don't think that is it. The local elections are the important ones for your community, but what's not important is to hire some like well-falutin, I'm tied into the cool. Wait, you can manage your own affairs better than like counting on the government. Doesn't like anyone, let alone like any community. If you ask me, they don't seem to be much in the mood. It seems like, do not envy the oppressor and choose none of their ways. So it seems like a club of wealth and taste that loves the proverbs best. Like, really, I think like they just, no, I think they like oppressor. It feels good to have like power. If I can just like get them to concede, like, it's like a whole, like, people are infirmed, man. So the truth and putting your faith not so much in the current justice system as certainly like a lot of these people are down by law, and everybody's not. We're all fallible human beings here, but like, why so liable? I would ask of like a large swath of like companies and impropriety and things that like whoever can figure out to like put their trust in this particular country and the Constitution, and no, wait a minute. There are laws currently publicly on the books not being at all like. I mean, you can't censor the same people who wanted a free internet for like 10 years. Remember the free web? Like, they don't think that anymore. They 180'd quick, and they cared about it the most. Same with like war. Or like, Halliburton stuff, or like whatever, like we don't like it, like the same people, like, I don't know, that were so worried about like people in the name of like stomping out like terrorism abroad and all that, we're gonna like, violate our, and you were wise to look out for that. Sure enough, right? But now like, all the principles they understood then, they're happy to just complete 180, just jump and jump. Like, obviously, there's a reason they want a poison pill for Twitter and all that. I mean, like, they don't, you even see these articles coming out in China about how, like, with the fall of the Soviet Union and what the experts of like the Harvards of China think about it. I mean, like, I don't mean to, like, they write for themselves, like what they did wrong or whatever in their view was like were more transparent with their like populace after, like, they didn't have much of a choice, but like in their view, if they would have just hidden the atrocities of, like, administrations prior from the people and continued to deny it and, like, basically, like, put in line anyone who would mention they might have done that, right, as opposed to then it wouldn't have fallen and they would have had more. I mean, like, they freely admit that free speech and free communications, and no, this is going on, no, that is going on, is like the enemy of, like, particular, like, certain regimes, and whatever they want in their country is fine, but in our country, hell no. And it's not our concern if people can get a VPN or whatever, but if it's anywhere at all on the internet, you can't wait a minute. People are being very, very foolish here, if you ask me. I mean, here we have there's war about it. Like I said, Putin strikes me as like, I mean, it's horrible. We can't take that back, and I wouldn't want, like, more Ukrainians or, like, anyone to have to die. And it sucks because you can't do much, right? No one's will send the weapons, but, like, we need peace, and I applaud, like, anyone who can get, like, Putin to, like, show up and negotiate, but it does not seem like that's at all an option right now. And so, like, you just got to be mindful of, like, because on the one hand, you have the experts who say, like, well, they're good fighters. They don't want us to fight for them. Like, we just got to get them the weapons and da-da-da-da, right? That's not quite so, because then you have other, that is so to a point, but then you have other, experts who point out, well, they're, like, severely outnumbered, right? So they can't replace ranks with, like, trained soldiers the way, like, the Russians can. So I don't know, like, what's going on in, like, Mariupol, or, like, I'm glad, there are, who the hell knows. I pray for those people trapped in that factory. I believe Zelensky offered you, prisoners of war in exchange for, like, letting the civilians live. I believe you took those are not the ones in the factory, actually. Those are other civilians that you took, and he'd like to exchange them. I don't know. It's all terrible, actually, when I think about that particular, like, front. And I continue to pray for Ukraine and, stand with them as well, because that's a self-sovereign country. And now there are, like, a lot of dead people, all in the name of, like, something like a fool's end that won't help you. Anyway, I already spoke about that one, I think. Sorry, I'm just reading this. I got my cheat sheet. What else? Well, let's see. We've got, I don't know, it seems a lot of infirmaries here with, like, certain things. Like, I don't know, you got that one strange slap. I'm not really going to comment too much on it, other than to say, like, what the WTF, like, that's highly unfortunate. No, you don't get to do that. And I was glad to see that if there were, like, I was very, very glad to see that, like, there was, like, stoppage of filming because, like, a certain big shot, like, tried to be big shot, and I guess, like, got an altercation or otherwise did something that merited, like, we stop filming and you're gone or whatever, which is like, well, yes, do that. It doesn't matter who it is. People can be abusive. Like, wait a minute. I mean, if I ever threw anything, even like a plastic straw at somebody, they would not only like lock me up, but I'd be on like 10 meds. If I ever threw anything at anyone, actually. So, let's see what we got here. Twitter? Nah, I mean, like, well, Mr. Musk, I wish you luck. I don't think you're going to have much luck with, like, I mean, anything but, like, right? So, I don't know. They act like Twitter's a nothing burger anyway. I don't like that, but yet they're willing to try for it, right? It's very important to have a like ultimate bully pulpit on all the trans in town. Plus, you don't want pesky people like getting in touch with each other, because the other reason it is good is for like just like, you know, a few people, but like whoever it is, they can see your stuff, reach out, you know, friend, da. We don't allow that. So it's ridiculous. Actually, I find it ridiculous. Certain things about it. Like, what? You're liberal, right? You know how you hate conservatives because you're liberal, and like the one word, you know, very progressive, right? That's why you are against free and fair communications unless it's in the name of like, you know, your cause. And I think, you know, no matter what, like just in one, when, hell no, slunk anyone who's like failing you, and particularly mean people, like you're, hey, wait a minute. Don't do that. Mike Tyson, I do feel bad for the guy. Clearly tried to goad him into a fight, yet you can't do that. It sucks. Like the guy got the outcome, if you ask me, that he wanted, which was like he got Tyson to like punch him a bunch of times, and now he's lawyered up. I feel bad about it because they caught it on camera, you know, and whatever. He's obviously like provoked, yet, you know, whatever it is, like, it just seems like an unfortunate way to try and like ruin somebody's life, whether they meant to or not, because he is liable. Whatever happens, like he could, you know, this seems unfortunate. I mean, like, I don't know. There's not much to say about it. I hope it doesn't wind up with like time for the person to have to spend over it. But yet, like, yeah, man, he knows he can't do that. I mean, it's not worth pointing that out because no, you can't do that. Like, you know, you can't go back and, you know, say, well, actually, you know, in hindsight, not being that person, I think if you just would let him bother you, you know, it's stupid to do. The guy obviously goaded him into like doing that. You know, either way, it's going to be cool. He's like, that's just unfortunate. That is, anyway, wish everyone well, of course. But, then no one, it's not, if you look to the left or the right, you're not gonna, it really matter what club or clan, let alone like they really try to breed like that, particularly skin color. Like, where are the Americans? And if you don't get a hold and a handle on just telling the truth, like consider bigger picture truth, right? Vice Story had this one random article about like, you know, some guy like praised to death who like, like preyed upon, like he was just about to like kill some like poor migrant like woman here, not legally, that thought she was going to like, you know, be among like, you know, peers, and then has like a horror story about it. And when you consider like what we have turned a blind eye in this country, we are guilty of not reporting things much closer to home, particularly like in Mexico or by the border or with the cartels, or like, maybe 4 years later you'll get a Nat Geo show about it, and it's like the most horrifying, like they'll just round up neighborhoods of people and like shoot them, and it goes on, and like like we don't want to, like, wait a minute. It just seems very disingenuous that there's no common ground, and in the long run the only way to get a handle on any of like the border crisis or whatever is, ideally, we have a hemisphere where like people are happy enough, and like we're able to help out enough, like even from here with like business opportunity down there where they live. They do flee like bad situations that we don't seem to give a damn about. Like, on one way, they are self-sovereign countries, that ain't it. But I don't know, particularly with like, what if you do any amount of research into certain things, is well, why would anyone like want to put up with that though? Like, for like, well, because they can get things through the border for one, right? And people. But we have to stop that. You don't do anyone here, whether with papers or without papers, right? They're just wops, right? Like, I mean, they're like like, presumably I'm Italian American. I know what that means. Without papers here, not legally, whatever it is, right? So, but now you're gonna have like, I think like, it's a staggering shame what's going on at the border, and it's not going to be helped by like ignoring it. And it's also not, it's not. I mean, I hope they can do something. Title 42 like is a stopgap measure that if it were not there, because every policy was plucked away, like there's no recourse if they but like that's not a long-term solution no matter what. It's just that there's no laws currently in place to I mean, they even know. That's why a lot of Democrats in Texas in particular they're going to vote right. Whether they switch party affiliation or not isn't relevant. Like, they have, I mean, even Beto O'Rourke doesn't like it now. It was in when I don't think that particular person, like, either way is really I wish everyone well at it, but I just feel like if people could put their foot down a little bit and learn to, like, wait a minute, everybody's like sneaking, you know what I mean? I always complain about. Shouldn't do that. I don't know. It's not that cool. So, but I don't know. I mean, you had the friend named Lee, right? But I don't know what you mean. Well, I have a terrible feeling. We have a mutual friend named Lee. But you're worried about, like, what? Like, folks like him? I don't know. Try to be nice about it. I wouldn't be worried about that. There's what someone far mightier to be, like, worried about. Actually, I mean, beep beep. I mean, I don't know. I just try to be nice about it. Anywho, not really. This is a misunderstood individual. Kind and sunny enough for me, that particular gentleman. But why would you let him put a spell on you? You wouldn't do that. Wouldn't worry about that. That ain't it. Something far like this. Well, what else we got here? I guess not much. I'm running out of things except, well, I think I'm going to do the Depp one as a different altogether, like, clip. But, I mean, that's only because I have a lot of thoughts on it. I've paid attention pretty good. But yeah, I mean, it's a dumpster fire of a relationship. It's just like, yeah, the question ultimately does lie in like, either you were someone who hit her and raped her, or you were not, and you say you were not, and I mean, it's overtly verbal abuse on both sides. It is a co-abusive relationship, yet he does sort of prove with like already with what's out there that, you know, the way even towards the beginning, middle, and end of when their relationship went south, which wasn't that long of one, she's not really talking to him like from the point of view of a victim. She's a co-abuser. I mean, overtly. Like I was a little triggered by some of the audio because like I know like when you, I mean, especially if that person like who did kind of have like an oh shit look on their face as like because she was stoic the whole time, but then like when he talked about the severing of that finger, I assume for a $50 million lawsuit there's more or someone or something that she looked very concerned at that moment in time. It wasn't a how dare you make that up about me type look. It was there is a little like culpability there. And either way, either way, that's despicable because either he's making that up about it and he cut his finger, right? He cut his own finger because and then he's pinning that on. I mean, that's egregious. However, like, particularly if you understand, like, he did establish that they were in a big fight, that he cowered in like 5 bedrooms to get away from her leading up prior to that particular incident. And, you know, if she did do that, especially if she did do that, they had some recording where at one point, like the day I cut my finger or whatever. Either way, when you say I cut my finger, like he sort of explained it, but no, I mean, that'd be tragic if that's how he talks about that to her, that incident, if in fact she was the one who, I mean, that you wouldn't turn around after like he tried to hide something like that for you to do that to him years later and tout yourself as like a victim and a champion of victims' rights or whatever. It's fine even if you've done some abusing yourself to champion victims' rights or like espouse, you know, things about this bill or that bill or like, but when you read like it would have been very overtly about that person, and it would have been there's really no recourse but for people to cancel that gentleman because she was complaining about being canceled herself just for ratting out and speaking out against abuse, and she should not have been punished for speaking out against an abuser, her abuser. That was her story. That does not seem like a fair representation, but, you know, the facts have not all come out yet. In fact, he's not even done. He's not looking so great sometimes with he can't let go of her own, like, you know, with drug use or, you know, like framing certain, I mean, like either he hit her or there was incidental contact where she got hurt and like he's got his like, but I'm very keen to hear like, you know, the rest of it from either she's got all kinds of things that they're going to ask Mr. Depp about with respect to physical abuse, where they ask him, or they're gonna like or it's just gonna be accusations with not so much stuff. It's going to be one or the other. If he would not have necessarily brought a $50 million lawsuit against her, that could be $150 million swing lightly. Like, I do think that person feels very much like I was canceled as a result of like this stuff, but yet it was nothing like that. That person defamed me. That person misrepresented me as the abuser when it was a toxic, like co-abusive relationship, but the only one that would resort to punching or whatever. But that's only great if that's so. That only fly. I mean, you know, but we'll just have to wait and see, because if she cannot establish a pattern of being sexually abused or physically abused by him, while he can establish she is pretty abusive and doesn't deny like starting fights, even physical. I mean, and the way she's screaming at him for certain things, it just seems to me like, you don't come and knock on the door. Well, don't change the subject to when I hit you. But yet, like, there was another fight where like she was angry because like he was, she was the one at the door. It's always, it does strike me as, again, that is not so. I know that language. I know, wait a minute, everything, I don't know, scream down, no matter what it is. I know, like, I bet I know a playbook that, like, so, one wouldn't want to jump the gun. One even assumes, like, they would have to have, I mean, it's such a drawn out case. Like, at some point, there might be, like, if he can establish that, no, in point of fact, she did do that to my finger. And like, if he can, beyond his word versus her word, because she did look, that was like the one time of the entire thing pretty much where she did not seem like somebody either like who was upset that he was accusing her of this out of like place, or that like she looked very like, uh-oh, I might be a little guilty about that when she did have a look like that on her face. But you can't, I mean, A, the jury wouldn't have seen that, and B, that's not something that's legal. You could argue she was just worried about, this will cast doubt on her. I mean, you can't totally say that. I'm just saying, like, if you care to go back and watch when he first, like, divulged that. Because some of the shit he was saying, like, she can't be that bad. He's describing, like, then I'll get to that stuff in a second. I mean, on the stand, some of the stuff he's saying was like, there's no way she's that abusive with her tongue or whatever. Like when she's yelling at you, she could, but then you hear the recordings and it's exactly that. He described it accurately, is what I would say. That doesn't give him the right to, I mean, those texts he was sending to his friends while intoxicated are so incredibly, it's not illegal. It's not even saying it to that person's face, though. I have no doubt if you're saying that, then one can only imagine the type of stuff. Like, you guarantee you hurl verbal abuse right back at that person who overtly, like, it seems like a co-abusive verbally. And I mean, he's, but she doesn't seem particularly like scared of overly, like, somebody who it does seem like she misrepresented that relationship actually and moved on quick with like her Burning Man friend actually. So whether that's, I don't think she's the bastion of like, victims like advocacy that like that she became based on that experience and talking about it in the public. And especially that article, because like less is more, and it alluded to like, use your imagination for all of it, but I'm gonna rail against like the movie studios for like, here's why, like, I mean, it would have been very, I mean, the appropriate thing to do based on such a thing, if in fact true, it would definitely be to cancel that person. But I mean, I do feel, wait a minute, I don't think that's quite the whole story on that one, actually. But we'll find out either way. And either way, it's an unfortunate situation where, like, I don't know. There's not, I guess that person figures they can't seem any lower, like they pushed the F it button. They want it all out there because, wait a minute, this is how this is how, Yeah. It's very difficult to like prove something in court either way beyond like dumping out the exact nature, volatile nature of that relationship, which is like ludicrous. And then, I mean, even the fights you consider like, I mean, like, just the post-nuptial like led to that fight apparently down in Australia, but then she's mad about not being in the will yet when like whether you severed his finger or he did it during that fight. Like there seems to, but I think again, when you bring a lawsuit about it, you're generally prepared a little bit more than at the time he was advised not to, but then do about it. So you know, I don't necessarily think the strategy of the lawyers are very good, like with respect to not hammering home the point that like she alluded to a relationship that was this on this public platform, which devastated this person's like career after like, I mean, it didn't work out. And, if in fact he really wasn't like hitting her and there's like, but if in fact he was hitting her, he under oath is just completely lying, then the hell with it. But I don't necessarily think that's quite so. But he's just, the whole thing is a crazy, like, unfortunate thing. And, but it does seem like, I don't know. Zoop, right? Doop. Hard to be fair in that situation, right? I don't know. We have to get to the truth in this country, and we have to like go back to good faith a little bit because we can't do what we're doing here. It's no good. We all can do better, but when like nobody knows anything, I'm not allowed to admit, or people are like, I overtly complain for years is like a club that like they like to collude with each other about say this to that person, then get them to do that. And I bet you can. I only complain from firsthand experience, and it's like me, but like, anyway, just watch out for like two-faced people because they're around about it, and nobody knows of a club that like nobody knows about like condescending people or whatever. It does not give you the right to like certain things about it, but you certainly have a right to your free speech about it. Particularly anyone who's abusive. If you're throwing things at people, or you're threatening to like break their face, or you're doing this or that, or you're like, the bossy thing. Wait a minute. Let's grow up a little bit here, because any adult can be abusive to a child, and any adult can be abusive to an adult, and we're not gonna get anywhere if we don't like if you keep going into corners. There's a group that wants to divide everybody, and like all they're focused on is their part in lane. And just listen to me though, but I'm the best because I think that person, and like they like want to do that en masse to the next generation. Actually, drive a wedge. When don't do that. Wait a minute. I mean, we all have self-worth. Actually, we all have our own little like part to play, whatever we're gonna do with it, right? But in this country, because of the laws that are on the books, wait a minute. They even know, and like any American citizen, if you actually went back to a like situation between Apple and AT&T and like the Yahoo people and the internet people and the Gmail, and like if you just went back to a system where like people have free and fair communications, regardless of, you cannot in any way like do anything to then all of us have far more like power over like evildoers than like they ever could. But when you like intentionally, I think like we're all, we've all been like Han Solo's girlfriend from the Solo movie about it. We're in the club with them all, we can't like, I don't think very complex. Listen, that's so sad and all, but like people are counting on you to like snap the hell out of it, because that's not quite so. You can't say, wait, I mean, like, I liken it to, like, what do you, like, I'm so sorry, kid, I don't mean to kick you, but I gotta keep kicking, whatever. Like, you essentially doing that to all the youth by wanting them to be mad at everything or this or that or whatever about it. And, like, we don't need, like certain things are sad about it. So, anyway, I wish everybody well. Wasn't planning to talk that long about that Depp trial, but like, I still have other thoughts about it too. But like, really, it's one of two ways. If he hit her, I'm rooting for her. If there is a pattern of actual physical abuse, because he even sort of knows, like, she goats him into fights and he goes and hides because he doesn't want to snap on her. But that doesn't matter, because you stay in a relationship. Well, if you do snap at her, do you hit her or not? He was mortified and said he's adamant no. And I wasn't there, but it is interesting that he because of what a toxic relationship when they're both recording each other so they can but it seems sad. Victims know that one when we try and record to get it on record or whatever, or about it. Because, wait a minute, if people are pathologically lying, you'll. But then even when you can't, it's no winning with some people. So, if she turns out, it was that, and, I don't not feel bad for that person no matter what. If you read the article, she was a survivor of sexual abuse in college and some other stuff and other, she wasn't just a victim. However, that is a co-abusive relationship, and if they're no matter what, and in terms of physical abuse, it was overtly there's at least one side of physical abuse, and I suppose we'll find out what if it was a two-way street or not. So, because you can explain away one or two when you're physically restraining somebody trying to attack you, or that's all well and good if you can establish that on the recording, or they play more about of it upon when they examine her. So who the hell knows? But if the totalitarian picture of it is not so much what was implied through that article and her statements in public that did extra ruin that guy, who was I do feel bad about it. I don't think that person deserved all that, actually. So, but we'll have to see. It really depends on was it a misrepresentation and a defamation of while in reality, if one of us is the bully here, it's not me, yet they wrote this, that is condescending. That is taking advantage of what should have been a movement that that's what I mean. Certain people clearly did care about it. So it bothers me. If there's blow up the White House people sitting next to them. Actually. But have a very nice night. Goodbye.